Have you ever been walking in the supermarket and you walk past an aisle that has a huge box of what looks like saltines? Well, they're actually not saltines, and it's matzah, which is kind of like a cracker, but kind of not. So I'm here to tell you about the origin of it and a piece of Jewish history, basically. So I'm going to tell you the origin story of it. I'm also going to tell you the traditions that it's being used for today, and then I'm going to tell you how it's made. So let's start off with the origin story. Found in an article written by Chabad.org, this story takes place in 1313 BCE. And basically what this story is there was a pharaoh and there were Israelites. Pharaoh was in charge and these people were his slaves. And they did not want to be there. They wanted out, but they couldn't leave. They were enslaved. So a man named Moses, you might have heard of him, went to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh said, "No, that's not going to happen." So Moses told Pharaoh again, he said, "If you don't let them go, plagues are going to come down on you and your people, and you're going to suffer the consequences." Pharaoh still said, "No, you're still not going anywhere." So that's exactly what happened. Plagues came. According to an article from TorahMates.org, there were 10 plagues, and they included the water turning to blood, frogs, lice, flies, livestock dying, pestilence, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and the killing of the firstborn son. So all these plagues came, and when Pharaoh heard the killing of the firstborn son, he said, "You know what, fine, I don't want this anymore, get your people and leave." So in this rush to leave, because they didn't want Pharaoh to change his mind, which he eventually did, but they ended up getting away. They were scared that he would change his mind, so they packed all their stuff and they left. They didn't have enough time to let their bread rise, so what they did is they got their dough, and it said that they put it on their backs and cooked it in the sun. And that's why it didn't rise, because it wasn't made properly like real bread. And that's where the story of matzah comes from. So now that I told you about the story, the origin story, I'm going to tell you about the traditions that it's used in today. So there's a holiday called Passover that Jewish people celebrate, and basically it retells the story that I just told you. So according to an article written by History.com, Passover is a week-long holiday, but most people just celebrate it by having what's called a Seder. And a Seder is where people, Jews, family, come together and they retell the story of the Israelites leaving Egypt, which is what I just told you. So on a Seder table, there are a bunch of different things that all have different meanings, but since we're talking about matzah, that's what I'll tell you about. So matzah is on every single Seder table. It's like the main point of it. It's very, very important due to that being almost like the backbone, literally, if they put it on their backs, the backbone of them leaving Egypt, and that's what kept them safe. So also during this holiday, since the Israelites back in the day weren't allowed to, or didn't have leavened bread, therefore the Jewish people celebrating this holiday today also don't eat leavened bread during this week. During the day, it kind of depends on how the person celebrates it, but instead they eat matzah. You're not allowed to have pasta, nothing that has risen. So if you really want that piece of bread, or someone really wants that piece of toast, you can have some matzah with butter. Okay, so now that I told you about the traditions that it's in today, I'm going to tell you how it's made. So matzah is made with 2 ingredients. It's made with water and flour, which might seem like a pretty easy recipe, but it actually has to be very precise. And found in an article written by Everyday Health, in order for a piece of matzah that's homemade to be kosher, it has to be made in less than 18 minutes. So this is from the time that you start making the dough to the time that you take it out of the oven. So how is it made? For starters, what someone's going to do is they're going to put a pan in the oven and heat it up. Then you're going to start mixing the water and the flour together until it makes a dough. Then it's rolled into a ball and then flattened into a square, the best square a person can make. And then someone's going to take a fork and puncture it a bunch of times on both sides and create holes that go both ways. So basically this helps it stop rising, even though there's no yeast and stuff in it anyways. It also just helps with that. And so once you have those little squares made with the holes, you take the pan out, or the pan is taken out, the matzah is put on it, put in the oven, taken out, and it looks somewhat like this. This is an actual piece of matzah. It's a staple in my household, but it's literally super, super flat. almost like a piece of paper. It doesn't have much flavor. It is crunchy though. But yeah, so that's matzah. So today I talked about how the origin story of matzah, the traditions it's still in today, and then how it's made. So the next time you're walking in a grocery store and you see that huge box of saltines, maybe next time you'll remember it's matzah, and hopefully you can remember the traditions and the history of it and where it came from.